From BBC Learning English, this is Learning English from the News, our podcast about the news headlines.
In this programme, is Trump restructuring the global economy?
Hello, I'm Georgie.
And I'm Beth.
In this programme, we look at one big news story and the vocabulary in the headlines that will help you understand it.
And you can find all the vocabulary and headlines from this episode, as well as a worksheet on our website, bbclearningenglish.com.
So, let's hear more about this story.
Global stock markets are in shock after US President Donald Trump introduced a new wave of global tariffs. That's taxes placed on goods imported into the US from other countries.
The baseline tariff for all countries is 10%.
But there are extra tariffs on 60 countries that Trump calls the worst offenders. These are countries that have been charging higher tariffs on US goods going into their countries.
Trump has also put 104% tariffs on goods from China, the world's biggest exporter.
In the days after Trump announced the new tariffs, stock markets in the US and in the UK had some of their worst one-day falls since the beginning of the COVID pandemic in 2020.
And our first headline is about the stock market. This one is from Reuters. Stocks tumble again as US hits China with 104% tariffs. Treasuries slammed.
And that headline again from Reuters, stocks tumble again as US hits China with 104% tariffs. Treasuries slammed.
Now, this headline is about the stock markets falling. And Beth, we're looking at this word tumble. What can you tell us?
Well, if something tumbles, it falls. But it's not any kind of fall. It's quite a dramatic fall. And it has this idea of rolling continuously and quite fast.
Yes, when I hear tumble, I think of a hill. And I have this memory of when I was a child. I was on a walk with my family and I tripped on a rock and tumbled down the hill. Once I started rolling, I couldn't stop.
Oh no! So that is the literal meaning. But we can also use tumble for numbers and statistics when things go down dramatically.
Yes, like in the headline, the stocks tumble again. It means they're falling again.
And just a note, we can use tumble as a verb, to tumble, and as a noun, a tumble. So sometimes if you fall, you might say you took a tumble.
We've had tumble, fall.
For example, the song was number 1 in the charts last week, but this week it's tumbled out of the top 10.
This is Learning English from the News, our podcast about the news headlines. Today we're talking about the world's reaction to Trump's tariffs.
There have been different reactions from countries around the world. Some are playing nice, hoping for a positive result.
For example, a couple of days ago, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said Europe was ready to negotiate with the US, offering a 0-for-0 deal on industrial goods, meaning neither party will impose tariffs on the other.
Now, China, in contrast, is playing a different game, a game of retaliation and resistance.
Yes, on Monday morning, China announced that it was responding to Trump's 34% tariff increase with an additional 34% of its own.
And Trump has now placed an additional 50% tariff on China, taking China's tariffs to 104%.
China says it will fight to the end.
And our next headline is about this. This comes from The Independent in the UK. As China and the US spar, countries brainstorm over how to cope with the trade war.
And that headline again. As China and the US spar, countries brainstorm over how to cope with the trade war. And that's from The Independent in the UK.
Countries brainstorm. That means they're coming up with ideas for how to handle the trade war. But we are looking at the word spar. China and the US spar. Georgie, what can you tell us?
Well, this verb comes from boxing. It's when two boxers make the action of a punch without hitting the opponent that hard. It's common in training. You don't want to punch or be punched hard too many times when you're training.
Right. But the presidents of the US and China aren't in a literal boxing ring, are they?
No.
In the headline, China and US spar, it's more of a metaphorical meaning.
Yeah, that's right. They're throwing metaphorical punches by imposing tariffs on each other. Neither of them seem to want to back down.
And spar can also mean to argue with someone without much aggression. So, for example, my parents always spar with each other over who is better at cooking.
We've had spar, argue.
For example, those two always spar at meetings. They have very different ideas when it comes to business, even though they're actually good friends.
Now, White House officials have asked for patience and offer explanations, which are sometimes contradictory, about the strategy behind Trump's tariff policy.
Yes, it's unclear whether Trump is introducing tariffs to raise revenue and protect American industry, or if the tariffs are a negotiating tool, a way of getting countries to do things that he wants them to do.
Let's have our next headline. This is from the BBC. Trump's game of chicken over tariffs leaves world guessing.
And again, that headline from the BBC, Trump's game of chicken over tariffs leaves world guessing.
So the world is left guessing. There is uncertainty about what Trump's strategy is and why he's doing all this.
Yes, and we are looking at this phrase, game of chicken. Now, Georgie, we know what a chicken is, the animal, and if I call you a chicken, it means that you're scared. So what is this game of chicken?
Okay, well, let's imagine a literal game of chicken first. So imagine you're crossing the road and a car is coming quite quickly towards you. What's going to happen? Are you going to move out of the way, or is the car going to stop? That's the game of chicken.
Yes, so a game of chicken is about remaining calm and strong and hoping that your opponent will back down first in the face of danger. Back down means surrender or give up.
Yes, and in the headline, game of chicken has more of a metaphorical meaning. So Trump and his opponents aren't facing any physical danger, but some say they're playing games with the global economy, a more abstract danger.
Yes, Trump's policy is causing big disruptions, but in his game of chicken, he is not backing down. He's hoping his tariffs will push other countries to do what he wants.
We've had game of chicken, a situation where two people do something risky to see who will back down first.
For example, the companies are locked in a game of chicken over who's going to lower their prices first.
And that's it for this episode of Learning English from the News. We'll be back next week with another news story.
And if you've enjoyed this programme, why not try the worksheets on our website to test what you've learnt? Go to bbclearningenglish.com.
Don't forget to check us out on social media. Just search BBC Learning English on your favourite platform. Goodbye for now.
Bye!